Tonight, Gaza City is enduring its most relentless and devastating bombardment to date, as the conflict reaches a new and terrifying intensity. Israeli military operations have escalated dramatically, with ground forces and airstrikes working in tandem to tighten their grip on the city. The skies above Gaza are choked with smoke and the thunder of explosions, signaling a dangerous new phase in this ongoing conflict. Under the direction of Prime Minister Netanyahu, Israeli forces say they are striking strategic targets, but the reality on the ground is that ordinary civilians are suffering the most. This is urban warfare at its most brutal. Airstrikes and artillery shells rain down on neighborhoods, with even shelters and hospitals not spared from the violence. For Gaza's residents, there is no safe haven. Every building, every street, every home is a potential target, leaving families desperate and afraid. This latest offensive comes in the wake of failed peace negotiations, representing a bold and risky gamble by Israel's leadership, with the stakes higher than ever. The world is watching closely as Gaza City becomes the epicenter of destruction and heartbreak, with consequences that will reverberate for both Israelis and Palestinians for years to come. As the violence intensifies, the humanitarian crisis grows more dire by the hour, with aid workers struggling to reach those in desperate need. The cost is measured in lives. At least 30 Palestinians killed today, most in Gaza City. Airstrikes have hit shelters, including a school in Sheikh Radwan, killing families who had already lost their homes. No part of Gaza is safe. Attacks stretch from Jabalia to Khan Yunis. Hospitals are overwhelmed, doctors forced to make impossible choices. Since October 2023, over 62,000 Palestinians have died, thousands of them children. Each number is a shattered family, a future lost. The death toll rises relentlessly, and the suffering is incalculable. Gaza's agony shows no sign of ending. Israel's government, led by Netanyahu, is finalizing a plan to seize Gaza City through a massive ground and air assault. The goal: dismantle Hamas, occupy the city, and impose long-term Israeli control. Defense Minister Katz warns of the gates of hell if Hamas doesn't surrender and release all hostages. Ceasefire proposals are off the table. Israel is pursuing total military victory. Analysts say this marks a hardening of Israeli policy, prioritizing force over diplomacy. The risks: a bloody urban conflict, massive civilian suffering, and deep uncertainty about Gaza's future. Netanyahu's strategy could reshape the region at a devastating cost. For Gaza's people, survival is a daily struggle in a collapsing humanitarian landscape. Every day brings new uncertainty, as families wake to the sounds of destruction and the constant threat of violence. The basic necessities of life, shelter, food, and safety, are now luxuries for most. Nearly 90% of the Strip is under evacuation or militarized orders. Over 2 million are displaced. Entire communities have been uprooted, forced to abandon their homes and memories, seeking refuge wherever they can find it. Families live in tents, ruins, or overcrowded shelters, lacking food, water, and sanitation. The struggle for survival is relentless, with parents doing everything possible to protect their children from hunger and disease. Children endure trauma and repeated displacement, their futures stolen by war. Many have lost loved ones, and the psychological scars may last a lifetime. Medical care is scarce, disease spreads, and infrastructure is in ruins. Hospitals are overwhelmed, and many are forced to go without treatment for even the most basic illnesses and injuries. The UN warns of famine and total collapse, warnings that are now reality. Food and clean water are almost impossible to find, and malnutrition is widespread, especially among children. Gaza society is torn apart, its people isolated and desperate. Families are separated by checkpoints and barriers, and the elderly are left to fend for themselves in harsh conditions. This is the result of nearly 2 years of relentless siege and bombardment. The constant threat of airstrikes leaves no place truly safe, and the destruction is visible everywhere. For Gaza, the nightmare is unending. The world watches as an entire population is pushed to the brink, their resilience tested beyond measure. Israel's recent actions have triggered mounting global condemnation, with particular outrage focused on its plans for new settlements in the West Bank's E1 area. The international community is voicing deep concern, as these moves are seen as a direct challenge to long-standing efforts for peace in the region. Over 20 countries, including some of Israel's closest allies, have publicly declared that the expansion constitutes a breach of international law and undermines any remaining hopes for a negotiated peace. The diplomatic backlash is swift and widespread, with statements of condemnation echoing from capitals around the world. Critics and human rights organizations warn that the new settlements would effectively sever the West Bank, fragmenting Palestinian territories and making the prospect of a viable, contiguous Palestinian state nearly impossible. Meanwhile, Israeli military raids in West Bank cities continue to fuel further unrest and anger among Palestinian residents, leading to frequent street clashes and a growing sense of instability. The region is now a tinderbox: military offensives in Gaza, rising violence in the West Bank, and a deepening humanitarian disaster. Civilians are caught in the crossfire, with aid workers struggling to meet overwhelming needs. On the world stage, Israel's policies are leaving it increasingly isolated, as even traditional partners distance themselves and international forums debate possible consequences. For millions of Palestinians and Israelis on the ground, the wave of international outrage offers little immediate relief. Daily life remains overshadowed by fear, uncertainty, and the struggle to survive amid ongoing violence. As the crisis deepens, the world's response remains uncertain, and the path to peace appears more elusive than ever.